This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshido. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do. What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the Lean Builder Hoots on the Ground podcast, special edition R&D with Hoots and Key. And we've said it a couple of times, we're R&D in some different books, some concepts. We're pulling them from different industries. We're trying to make them easy to use for builders out there in the field. And today, again, we've got the key to it all, Mr. Keyan Zandy. What are we going to be talking about today, Keyan?
What's happening, Adam? So for those that hadn't listened to before, Adam dropped knowledge on me about R&D. I was explaining to him how in our industry, you can pick up a book, learn some cool concepts, apply it to what you do in your industry, and then everybody thinks you're smart. And it's been my secret to my success. Adam said, yeah, that's called R&D. I said, research and development. He said, no, rip and deploy.
Shout out Harry Schmidt for that one.
Today, Adam, I wanted to talk about the whole concept of sharpening your saw. And this obviously is a concept, if anybody's read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, habit number 7 is to sharpen your saw. And so for those that have read Joe Donnarumma and my book, The Lean Builder, if you remember, we have a whole chapter about our main characters, Alan and Sam. And Alan goes into this long story about his dad and this tree cutting competition. And so I wanted to talk through a little bit around that chapter, why we wrote it, how we wrote it, and then the main premise of it, because I really feel like, Adam, what you've been doing with Hoots on the Ground is going around interviewing some of the best and brightest in our industry that have really been trying to figure out better and smarter ways to do their work, and then teaching them along the way the different principles and things that they're doing are things that exist and things that people can go out there and read about and then implement on their job site.
You say that so eloquently. I just like to say we're discovering what's bullshido and what's not bullshido.
I love it.
But yeah, we're sharpening our saw. We're getting better. That's the intention of these podcasts. That's why we put the Hoots on the Ground segment together. It's all about getting better, improving, continuously learning as part of our lean journey. 100%.
So I'm going to share my screen here. This should be the motto: work smarter, not harder. There's a lot of reasons for that in our industry, especially as we got to keep dealing with all this volatility, supply chain, worker shortages, design teams not having enough time to complete their documents, all of us being commoditized. We got to work smarter and not harder. And so in chapter 7, we wanted to have Alan explain to Sam really how he got into lean construction in the first place, because I think that was an important piece. And it's an important piece to so many people in our industry that are working these long 60, 70-hour days that don't see things like adding value, reducing waste, continuous improvement, respect for people, all these tenets of lean as an option on how to sharpen their axe or blade, so to speak. But so the premise of the book is, or this chapter was, we really wanted to go more fable story around sharpening an axe. And in the chapter, Alan is asked by Sam, like, what changed for you? And he told him a story about when he was a young man, his dad had challenged him to a tree cutting competition. And that's a lot better in the book, I promise you. But Alan was maybe going into his senior year of high school, very confident. And at breakfast, his dad had asked him to clean the horse stalls and put down fresh bedding and do some other chores while he went out to go down a couple mature trees. And Alan, being the young cavalier man that he was at the time, joked and asked his old man if his back was up to the task. Now, if you've ever tried to challenge your old man, you know how that goes. And in the book, Alan's dad says, okay, I'll tell you what, if you think, yeah, I still don't got it, let's make a bet. the first one with the most trees down has to clean the stalls. And so, of course, Alan, we said his mouth moved a lot faster than his brain did back then, wanted to show his old man how good he was. And so he popped up from the breakfast table and said, there's no way he's beating him today. And so over the next few hours, they go to start chopping trees. And he even hears his dad not chopping periodically. And so he's going as hard as he can, sweating his butt off, and just knows that he was worn out. His dad must have been worn out, taking a breather. And so long story short, they go walk, and it felt like his eyes were lying to him. His dad had way more trees chopped down. And his dad asked him, he said, hey, he's like, Alan said, how'd you do it? I heard you were sucking wind every 30 minutes or so. And he's, no, son. Yeah, I was taking a break, which is important. I was resting, but I was also sharpening my axe. And how many times have you sharpened your axe this morning when you're cutting trees? Which Alan recognizes that he didn't. And so that kind of funny story about that. Me and Joe, obviously this is a bit of a parable, and the sharpen your axe thing comes from the 7 Habits, but we came up with this story. We're actually at the AGC convention in Denver, and we started having a couple bourbons at the place we were at. It was at the Union Station in Denver. And this all just started coming to us, and we were cracking ourselves up and enjoying ourselves. And so I remember sending it to our director of marketing, Dara, who's also editor and really a third writer of the book in a lot of ways. And she called me up. She said, did you write this? And I was like, oh, no. And she was like, oh, no, this was the best chapter of the book. And so we just wanted to make it real. And then he goes back, and it kind of all ties back together for him that in his own career, he hasn't sharpened his axe. Year after year, moving from job site to job site, using the same old way of building these jobs. And what Alan did not realize was that over time, the industry had been changing. Maybe the craftsmen weren't what they used to be. The drawings weren't what they used to be, all these different things. But he was just still using the same approach and tools that he'd always used. And it was that epiphany that led him to say, I got to get it more tools. I got to learn more. I got to figure out a different way to scale this. And for me and Joe, this is our favorite chapter in the book, because this is really where it all stems from, that continuous improvement. And really this R&D segment, Adam, is just us just constantly looking for ways to sharpen the axe.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, the axe is the mind, right? The axe is the capabilities that we're developing. And oftentimes when I'm coaching teams, I reference the current or traditional method of how we go about the industry, where we start a project, and then just like Alan, we chop and chop and chop and chop and chop and chop, and we don't rest. We don't take a break. We don't develop our capabilities, versus taking a lean mindset approach. And weekly, we're just hitting pause and reflect. Hey, what did we do that was successful that we should continue doing? What did we do that maybe wasn't so great that we should stop doing? Or what are things that maybe we should start doing? And so when we're relating it back to construction, it's again, being able to hit the pause and reflect button and say, hey, are we maximizing our value here? Or what could we start, stop, or continue? I think that's a great exercise that reinforces this development of capability, because oftentimes what I hear, and I'd love to get your response on this, teams say, we just don't have time for that stuff, Keyan. What do you tell them?
Adam, you got to find that cartoon. It's of those cavemen, and they're pushing a box. And
I've got it right here.
And then there's the one with the box with the wheels on it, and they're like, hey, need help? No, we don't have time. Yeah. We don't have any time to innovate, you know? It's always, that's what I think about. And then I think about too, like implementation of last planner system, implementation of a daily huddle, tracking constraints, visual communication. You get intimidated by that. That's a lot of stuff to manage and run, right? So in your mind, you're like, wait a minute, I don't have time to add all this process and stuff to my day. Look how busy I am. But what you don't realize is that by adding that process and thought and communication style, you're actually getting more time back in your day. And it's just a hard concept. Like, it's counterintuitive, right? Wait a minute, I have to do more to do less? Like, that doesn't seem like it would make sense. Just the counterintuitive nature of like having to go learn and do more is actually going to allow you to have more time. It doesn't feel like that. Like in order to become an expert at something or to learn something new, it's an investment of time that you don't have. But what you don't realize is once you do it, it actually gives you more time. It doesn't feel like it should be, but it is.
Yeah, and what you're describing to me is the difference between being busy and being productive. I think a lot of times we run around the jobs busy with things that are either superfluous, which they just don't matter, or maybe they're not providing as much value as we think they are because we just haven't asked our customer yet whether or not this is their expectation. And being busy and being productive are two totally different worlds. And that's why I love that start, stop, continue, because when teams tell me we can't do this because we're too busy to pick up something else, it's okay. Well, what are we going to stop so that you can do this? Because I know that this is going to make you more productive. So what are you doing that's not making you productive that we can stop?
Sure. I want to challenge a lot of folks in our industry, especially young folks coming in. Anything you go learn or do or get a certificate in or whatever it is, like your company will benefit from that, but you will own it. Wherever you go, you own that. And so if you want to go get your, let's say, your CM Lean certificate, it's an investment in your time. And does it benefit your firm that all their people have their CM Leans? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you own that. And so if your company's going to pay for it, man, take every advantage you can. Like go get that knowledge, learn something new, become a subject matter expert. I think those that know me, the best advice I ever got coming into the industry, somebody told me, and I shared this with a group of some of our younger staff, was that be a subject matter expert in something. First, be an expert amongst your peers in their firm, then within your firm, then maybe locally in a local in the market you're in, and then maybe in the state level, and then take it national and international. And somebody was like, well, you took that seriously with lean, but it was just one of those things where if you're curious and you have that curious nature about you, really try to find something that you're really interested in, that you're passionate about, and then learn as much as you can because it'll just benefit you so much in your career.
I love it. And what you're talking about to me is to become an expert in something, it takes you admitting what you don't know, which makes you vulnerable, which can make you a little bit uncomfortable. And so that's also something that after we maximize and perfect the pausing and reflecting, that's the next thing that I love to get teams through is that comfort zone diagram where, hey, we all love to be in our comfort zone, and getting outside of that is a little bit scary. It's a little bit fearful to give up control. We talked in a previous episode about command and control and how important that is, and at least how important that has been. And again, there still needs to be some command, some control to make sure we're in the guidelines, but that takes getting a little bit outside your comfort zone in order to grow and learn as a human being. So
For sure. And then I've heard you say before, man, you really want to understand something, you got to start teaching it. Even when you don't feel like you're ready to teach it, the more you talk about it or you articulate it, people ask you questions about it, you really start to understand how much and how much you don't know. And it gets you more curious to learn more.
yeah, you're referring to the learning retention pyramid. They say when somebody sits here and lectures and reads to you, you get less than 10% retainment. If they demonstrate the exercise, you get about 30%. If you have a dialogue discussion, you gain about 50% or you retain about 50% of the info. What you're saying is if you turn around and teach other people what you're learning and field their questions and you're able to do that in such a way that they're successful, you retain over 90% of that knowledge. Teaching from the Back of the Classroom is another great book. Felipe turned me on to that one. But we're full of these. I think it's important, again, just to make sure that is the point of what we're doing here. We've learned these lessons the hard way. We want the industry to benefit from the lessons that we've learned. And this is one of the ways that we're giving back to that community to say, hey, stop and sharpen yourself. And even that in itself is going to be uncomfortable. Like these other people are producing and producing, but you want me to stop and you want me to send my people to a class where they can get smarter and develop. Yeah, because that you might lose 2 hours of productivity while you're training people. But think about the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks when they're doing their jobs 2 hours faster and that exponential gain just continues to benefit you and your company. I love the concept. I'm all about it, Keyan. I'm a believer. What steps do you recommend to get people to understand this counterintuitive approach?
Yeah, I think I always go back to this: start small, baby steps. You don't need to go out right away and try to learn something huge and try to teach it and this and that. Pick something, you know, another book, Paul Akers, Fix What Bugs You. I think everybody in the Lean
Second
circle
lean.
is familiar. Yeah. But that's a perfect thing. That's the best place to start. If you start getting agitated, like, why are we doing this? Why does this take so much time? Why am I here past 6 p.m.? Those are the first places to start, and just start making those small incremental tweaks. And over time, you'll be there.
I think he says start in the bathroom in that book. Is that right? And that's a free book and it's out there.
Yeah,
And Paul Akers is very obtainable as well. So definitely that's another one. I've got to chalk that one up on our list here.
that's awesome. Well, Adam, man, I appreciate everything you're doing to make us all great with Hoots on the Ground. Keep rocking and rolling, brother.
Absolutely. It's not me, it's us. That's just what lean builders do, Keyan.
Amen.